Every game company wants to have that iconic mascot, a franchise that can be recognized in an instant by just one character, but very few have become as successful as Mario or Sonic. Shantae is a character that I think had the potential to become one of these mascots, but the game's popularity just never made it to that next level, which means Shantae games are probably in most gamers' backlogs. So, let's take a look at Shantae Risky's Revenge, the director's cut for the Nintendo Switch, and see where it belongs in your backlog. Right away, you're gonna notice the visuals, and considering the original game was actually a DSiWare game, I think they look really good. Yes, this is the director's cut, which does have some improvements, but the original art design for the game is a style that I really enjoy. Personally, I felt like the colors in the game really popped, especially the still images that came up during the dialogue cutscenes. The game also has really good enemy and level designs. There's a lot of different variety in terms of locations, and the main town and forest areas have a fantastic foreground-background effect that allows for really cool puzzles. Yes, the game is a side-scrolling game, but being able to jump back and forth across the foreground and background is a great way to create depth within a location. It also helps that it's not just one background to jump between, but because it's multiple layers, it allows the area to feel like a full level, even though it's rather short in terms of going left to right. While I have seen this in some games before, I felt like the multiple layers was a unique trait that helped the game stand out a bit more. Along with the good visuals, the game also has extremely catchy music. Whether you're in town, in the desert, underground, or underwater, the music was always a good highlight for the game. Having good music is always a good way to keep the player's interest, especially when there's no voice acting. Now, I understand this was originally a DSiWare game, so I wasn't expecting voice acting, but having catchy music can really help the dialogue scenes pass by a little quicker when you need to read everything. There's rarely a moment where the game allows the music or sound effects to feel boring or bland. But if the developers want to keep their game from being bland, then the most important aspect is the gameplay. Shantae Risky's Revenge is a side-scrolling platformer with a few 2D Zelda gameplay features as well as some Metroidvania mechanics. Now, I know that can sound like a tall order to be compared to these style of games, but the game does a decent job of it. The basic gameplay is side-scrolling platforming, while using your long hair as your primary weapon source as it acts like a whip. There is also ability upgrades, but instead of a morph ball or rockets, Shantae, who is a half genie, uses her ability to dance to transform into different animals, which gives her entirely new gameplay mechanics. Each of these transformations are found throughout the game, and they all give her new abilities right away, with an extra to be added later on. Abilities like the monkey help Shantae climb up walls, but there is also a monkey bullet ability found later on that gives her the power to dash across large gaps. You'll end up using these new abilities to make your way through the game's small Zelda-like areas, as you'll need to figure out all the puzzles to beat the enemies in the game's different dungeons. While nowhere near as complex as dungeons in Zelda games, the concept of getting through them remains the same. Find the ability within them, beat the boss, claim the reward, and move on. There are also a couple of small staples like upgrading your heart containers and things of that nature that you'll recognize if you're a fan of this style of game. The game is a sequel to the Game Boy Color game that released 8 years prior. However, I never felt like I was missing out by not beating the original game first. I have played the original game on the Switch for a short period of time, but I never beat it, and I decided to just jump right into this game, and storyline-wise, I felt like I wasn't missing anything. The characters and their motivations were clearly defined. While I haven't played them yet, I do believe that this game directly leads into the following games, starting with Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, as I'm pretty sure it's a full-on continuation of the story of these characters. If you're new here, I tend to not give too much detail on the stories, as I don't enjoy spoiling it for anyone who still wishes to play the game. There is also some non-gameplay aspects to the game that I think should be mentioned, which could help improve your gameplay experience. First off, the game can be played in a multitude of aspect ratios, with you being able to choose between the game's original aspect ratio, 4:3 or 16:9. There is also a border that you can add or remove if you desire, allowing you to play however you want. Personally, I played in 4:3 with the border as I felt like it filled out the screen better when I was playing on a TV. I also played using a Pro Controller and it worked great. You can either use the D-pad or the joystick to move Shantae, giving you more options, which in my mind is never a bad thing. But even though the game has interesting mechanics and multiple options for the player, it doesn't mean the game is perfect. Visually, the only issue I had was underwater. I completely understand the water effects they were going for. I just felt like they looked a little weird and they created weird motion effects on the screen. Luckily, the underwater section was rather short, so it wasn't a big concern. I also found that some of the dungeons had essentially some trial and error puzzles. Switching these statues and the direction of their eyes opened up different pathways, but it was usually trial and error to find out which direction they should be pointing in order to proceed. It just felt like there was no actual puzzle to solve. I found myself just trying a direction, getting to a dead end, going back and trying the next direction. While they were technically puzzles, I just didn't find them engaging at all. Aside from that, I found the gameplay to be pretty good, but I found it to be rather easy. I didn't think there was too much of a challenge to the game, but there is a hard mode that was unlocked after beating the story, which is a plus. I also found the story to be rather short. I beat the game with an in-game timer of 5 hours and 8 minutes, which did leave me thinking there should have been just a bit more to the game. Now, I do understand with it being a digital DSiWare game that they probably could only make the game so big, so I have no issues with it in that sense, but playing it now on the Switch, it felt like it was an incomplete experience. However, it did leave me hungry to play more Shantae games in the future. But with all these highs and lows, the question is, where should Shantae Risky's Revenge be in your backlog? And well, I think it should be in the middle of your backlog. There's some definite good to the game as I really enjoyed the transformations as well as the jumping between the foreground and the background, but I felt like the game left too much to be desired. There wasn't anything overly memorable about it. I feel like it did everything well, but nothing amazing. I feel like it's a game that if you're bored and you have a free weekend, you can easily get through the game, enjoy it, and move on. But if you're in the middle of playing Metroid Prime Remastered or anything new like that, then this game can definitely wait. But I do think that the game should be experienced at least once, especially if you like Metroidvanias and Zelda games. And there we have it, where I think Shantae Risky's Revenge should be in your backlog. Let me know if you plan on giving the game a shot, or where you would place it in a backlog. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to hit the thumbs up, and if you're new here, be sure to subscribe for more video game related content. If you're a subscriber to the Switch Online service and you're curious about Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, then be sure to check out this video right here.